What are the market stats for seller financing telling us? Stay tuned. Welcome to this week's edition of NoteSchool TV, episode 234. And we want to thank you for being with us today. We have amazing guests today. You probably know them or seen them somewhere around the world, right? They're going to talk about, the seller finance stats for 2024. But before we do that, let's do some housekeeping. Number one, make sure and like this episode. Yep, hit the like button there and share this with your friends. This is one you'll want to share with everybody that you know. So hit the like button. Number two, subscribe to the NoteSchool TV channel if you have not already done so. And then number three, hit that bell notification. Yep, Bing, go ahead and hit that bell notification so that you will know when we go live. When? Every Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. If you'd like to know more about what we do at NoteSchool, simply go to noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV. And with that, I want to bring on, NoteSchool's founder, our chief visionary officer, all-around good guy, my friend, Mr. Eddie Speed.
Good morning.
Good morning. I've been awaiting these stats forever, Eddie. I just love them.
I know they've been very, very helpful. They've been helpful from a number of perspectives, defining our market, defining how big our market is, defining where our market is. We've used this very report for a number of things relative to the Seller Finance Coalition. So Fred and Tracy have been very sharing with this to the entire industry, and we certainly use it and appreciate it. And we're always excited when they have the new data from the last year. And there is a lag time. It's not because of them. There's a lag time in getting it all gathered up from the data sources. And I'm just super happy to be a part of this today. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I'm going to jump off here. You're going to bring on Fred, Tracy. I'll see you guys at the end of the show.
Well, today you have already figured it out. I believe that I have a very special couple that is our industry experts and really have been a go-giver to the industry. And every year they do the seller finance data information, all the analytics relative to our industry. And they represent our industry well. And I'm always their friends. And I'm always glad to have them and always glad to learn from them. So you guys welcome Fred and Tracy Rewey.
Hi, Eddie. Thanks for having us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Always great to be here.
Well, as Joe said, we're excited. I know it takes you a while for you guys to get this information gathered up, but it's really exciting. And I'll tell you guys something funny. I was on the phone literally with somebody yesterday that is a data guy, and he says, "Well, there's no data on seller financing." And I said, "Oh, wrong. There is."
I beg to differ.
And this is a pretty well-known guy in the industry that does data for other aspects of the business, and he's not completely uninformed except when it comes to seller financing, because really what you guys gather is like nobody else does this, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of, it's not meant specifically for this, but the data is out there. So then you just put it together in a different way that makes sense to us for what we're looking for. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, we use a data provider that provides the data, and they scrape the courthouse records in the counties that it's readily available. So it's about 2,200 counties. And this is based on recordings that are public in the counties of people who owned property, sold property, and took back private financing. So this could be mom pop seller or somebody's doing this professionally, but it's different. It's not a bank loan. It's not Wells Fargo or Mr. Cooper or Rocket Mortgage. It's somebody who owned the property, sold it, took back financing. So it's a small segment, right? It's not private lenders, which is a much bigger segment. It's just this niche segment of seller financing.
Well, we're excited to go through it. I love the report. With your permission, we've shown it many times, and diversified investment services definitely is deserves the credit for this. You guys have put this together, and we are very, very happy to share it with our audience. And we've been long industry friends for decades, and watched our kids grow up together and all that. And so it's been a fun ride hanging out with you guys. And I'd say let's put it up there, guys, and go through it.
All right. Well, we're excited to be here. We're going to talk about the seller financing stats, and we're just going to kick it off. Everybody's here to know how big is the seller financing market, and this is based on 2024 data.
Yeah, this is great for everybody that's never been in the industry or wonders like, oh, how big could you really be? We're roughly 3-4% of the overall real estate market. So you think, oh, that's not that much, but then when it's 30.3 billion in 2024, so that's just our piece of it. That and we're going to talk about what that does not include. But basically roughly 30.3 billion. And we're always curious what the top line number is, and we'll break it down as well. But we're always curious, we have a sense of the market, but then, when real estate prices go down or interest rates go down, we've done this a long time. I know, Eddie, you've done this a long time. We've seen all sorts of market, and people are always creating notes a little higher, a little lower, but it doesn't matter because even if that number was 25 billion, there's still more notes than we can buy. So
that's all right. Yeah.
And
it's bigger. I think it's bigger than most people think it is.
It's way bigger than most people think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. We always say that's billion with a B, right?
Right.
People are expecting to hear million. And when you look at a trailing 5 years, I mean, there's lots of notes out there to buy, but we usually look at the trailing 5 years. You can look at the trailing 10 years, but we like to add up the last 5 years and look at that as readily available market inventory. In the last 5 years, that was $131.9 billion. So it's a sizable market that I think a lot of people are surprised by. Keep in mind, this is first position, over 30,000, and it's just seller financing that's been recorded. It wouldn't include things like unrecorded contract for deeds, other things out there that you might think is creating finance, and this is just recorded. So it's a pretty sizable market.
It is. Great.
So how does that stack up to last year? Well, we'll let you know.
Yeah. So basically, if you take this versus last year, so remember we're talking about, because there's a little bit of a trailing. It takes a couple months, but together, this is 2024 compared to 2023. So last year's volume was $30.3 billion, as we mentioned, which is basically up about 2.3 billion or 8.4%. Now we'd expect some of it to go up a little bit because real estate prices go up. But last year, we started to see a lot of softening towards the end of the year and a lot of softening in real estate prices. So honestly, if this would have been no increase and just the same, I would have been thrilled. The fact that it's held its own and even increased on dollar volume is pretty impressive.
And that's impressed. That's based on, as Fred mentioned, general real estate cycles. The average median home price continues to go up, and that's true for seller financing as well. We did see that the count, so we track it by dollars and we track it by individual transactions, they held pretty steady. They only went up 0.13%. But when you consider what happened last year in the real estate market, seller financing really held steady compared to the general home sales.
It did.
Yeah. And I mean, if you, and we'll have a link for everybody to get this report if they want it, but basically, our drop down or basically even is nowhere near what real estate suffered in that scenario as far as its slowdown.
Yeah, because sales last year fell in 2024 to nearly a 30-year low, according to the Associated Press, for the second time. It happened in 2023 as well. And that was based on elevated mortgage rates, rising home prices, and few properties on the market compared to the prospective home buyers out there. And really, when at the end of the year, the National Association of Realtors said that existing U.S. home sales only totaled 4.06 million. And that was a decline. They saw a big decline in 2023. It's the lowest since 1995.
So what that really means is, right, the market share for seller financing went up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you think about it, if all that dropped and even we held steady, it went up.
Yeah.
When you compare it to the normal conventional sales and financing. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Really good point.
Yeah.
So, and that's all based, that's a chart I know you and Joe use a lot too, the Mortgage Credit Availability Index. We know that when it's harder to get a conventional loan, we tend to see more seller financing. And we've seen those times, a low number means it's harder to get financing through a conventional bank. A high number means it's easier. So we see that when it's low like this, we've seen different times in the market cycles where it's harder to get a loan, and seller financing continues to hold steady or tick up.
Yeah, that's it seems that we repeat this over and over. We all say this, right? Seller financing essentially fills the void when conventional lending doesn't fill a void. And we don't think it's risky lending. We think that conventional lending is too tight, right? I mean, look at the qualification standards, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we know just from, underwriting notes as well as you do. I mean, there's a lot of good people that just don't, with traditional financing, they have to check every single box. With us, we have flexibility. You walk into traditional financing, and God forbid you're, employed less than a year or self-employed, I mean, so they're just even with a whole lot of cash, they don't qualify. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that gets thrown out. We're going to talk about it in a second, because there's a perception of what our industry has. And we've really dispelled that for several years of doing this report of what everybody thinks the average note is. And we're going to get to that in just a second. But this is the overall dollar volume year to year, just going back.
And so, so we look at this dollar volume and counts, and that little chart that just came up was just kind of looking at the counts that made up over the years. And it kind of follows that mortgage availability chart. When it was harder to get financing, there was more seller financing transactions created. So we like to look at owner financing by property type. So that is not just single family residential, right? Although that is the big bulk of it.
Yeah, so the biggest category is residential, which is $15.4 billion, or roughly 51% of all the notes created by dollar volume are residential, less than 4 units, single family, home. And that's basically 63% of the count. So that's the biggest area that notes are created.
And then we've got commercial. It makes up about 32% of the dollar volume with $9.9 billion and about 16.5% of the count.
Yep. Land is $4.2 billion, which is about 14%. And then there's the favorite category of Tracy's.
So that we have gotten this number so much smaller over the years, but based on county data, they sometimes report what the property type is, and sometimes they don't. And so we've got that down to unknown. We feel pretty confidently, as we watch this number shrink over the years, that the unknown splits up very similarly as to residential, commercial, and land is what it makes up. So seller financing covers all aspects, with residential being the biggest.
I think you've done a great job on that.
Thank you. Yeah, this chart actually shows how we get to the last trailing 5 years, and you can see there that you've got that unknown number down from 5.3 billion down to 815 million. So you just look at those numbers, though. You've got 15 billion in residential, 9.9 billion in commercial, 4.2 billion in land. It's interesting that land had a big year in 2020, and it's kind of just evened out to what we see as more normal. Commercial's on its way up, residential up, but of course, no surprise with residential because all the values are going up.
Yeah. It's great data.
So this is the category that I think shocks everybody also, in addition to how big the industry really is there's this perception that the notes that we're buying or the notes that are being created are all these like no down payment and, brand new and, high risk and stuff like that. And that's not what the data shows us. So if you just take the residential category, we're going to break them down. The average residential note is $271,655, which is an increase, a 9% increase. But the LTV, the loan to value, is 73%, meaning that there is 17% equity in the property. And we've seen this number, it fluctuates slightly versus 74 the previous year. And we see this number go back and forth a little bit, but the perception of, they're only no money down or 5% down or 10% down, not even the case. We're actually much closer to 20%. And if you look at the 9% increase and still only have a 1% increase in LTV spread, it's pretty good.
Yeah, you're actually nearing in to 30% equity, almost 30% down payment, because we're really at 27%. compared to that 73% loan to value. And we see that in commercial too. It actually does.
Oh, I said 17%. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I would have been happy with 17. You're right. I said that. I'm like,
yeah, we naturally think, oh, we're happy when you get close to 20, but we're talking 27% there. And we're talking over 30% on commercial. So commercial had a 69% loan to value, 31% down. These are the new notes created in 2024 based on states that disclose sales price. Not all states do, but based on those. And the average there note amount was $669,046, and that was also an increase from the prior year.
And land again, similar thing, 69%, so 31% equity in that. The average price is $283, which is a little lower than you would think on some of it, because you always picture it as large lots, but in reality, it's a lot of small lots that have nothing else on them. So that was an 8% increase, just a slight increase.
Do those numbers ever, I know, Eddie, you know these numbers like the back of your hand, but do you find that surprises people? What kind of equity?
This is a slide that I literally, of course, y'all know I have a big campaign right now. I'm showing people that have rent houses how to make more money with seller finance in the same house. And obviously I still have a play in the land business, buying land notes. And the fight that I have with customers all the time is that we can't get that kind of a down payment. 10%, that's all we can get. And I'm saying it's in your head. It's not, the data doesn't say that. And I just am saying that I'm so grateful for you guys providing this, because it helps people think bigger than they can think. Because you are just simply saying what the market is, and we're trying to bring people to the market to create better grade of notes.
Yeah, I never thought of it using it as that tool, because, if you're going to somebody who says, oh, I can only get back 10%. I'm like, well, are you happy with 10? Because the industry average is 27%. Like, well, wait a minute. I don't want to be that far below. I should be trying to get more. And so it kind of gives them that permission to get more.
I've already noted it's slide 9, right? it's because it paints such a good picture of people realizing I can do this if other people can do it.
Yeah.
That's right.
So other than the overall number, this is a powerful slide, I think.
Yeah, it is. Great.
And we like to look at what states have the most seller financing. So we found that over the years, about the 67% are produced in the top 10 states. And the other 40 states are about 33% of the volume. And we look at this in particular on count, because it would be easy for some states with higher property values. So these next charts you're going to see are based on counts. So you're all wondering, what's the top state for 2024?
What's the top state for 2024? Texas.
Well,
Texas has been the top state for a long time. It's interesting. If you look at a lot of these states, this top 10, they tend to be more coastal. They tend to be more creative in some of their finance, thing like that. So number 1 is Texas. Number 2 is Florida. Number 3 is California.
Yeah, and Texas at 25%. Eddie, that doesn't surprise you. You live right there in Texas.
It's a big state.
Well, it's common here. I remember way back in the day when you guys were at Metropolitan, you were executives at Metropolitan, and we'd had this conversation all the time, that 25% of all the seller finance notes that you guys bought when you were with a big institution was, and it represents how many notes are created. And so it's kind of been that way for a long time. I would say this, we have a chance to influence the rest of the country, because Texas is only in the habit of doing this more than other states. It's not that it actually works better in Texas. It's just that people are in the habit of it.
Yeah.
Very good point. Well, North Carolina and Georgia round out the top 5. And then if everybody wants to know the whole top 10, right? So we've got Arizona number 6, Washington State number 7.
Number 8 is New York. Number 9 is Tennessee, which actually I think is a newcomer to the top 10 list.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, and number 10 was Pennsylvania. So interesting to see some of those northeastern states on there as well. And we have a download that, if you can get all the states. This just kind of shows you there's the top 15 right here. If you go to noteinvestor.com/stats, we'll have everything from this PowerPoint plus some other stuff that you can play around with and resort on your own.
Yeah, and you can see, like Fred said, all 50 states. And so we just kind of give you an idea of those top 10 that are in that 67% of the volume. And there's seller financing in every state, but some states consistently create more, as Eddie mentioned. I remember one time we were all talking about it, Eddie, and you said activity breeds activity. And I think that's very true in Texas and the other states that tend to be in that top 10.
Mm-hmm. A caution flag. There's some weird laws in Pennsylvania relative to the rates you can charge.
Yes.
They have a usury rate that is way lower than normal.
Mm-hmm.
And it surprises me. And just a caution flag, if you're dealing in the state of Pennsylvania, you need to be aware of that.
Yes, agreed. And because not everyone is, and so all those notes aren't necessarily in compliance with those state laws. That's a really important point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tracy, you know what that's called? Experience.
Yeah. Oh, the learning the hard way kind.
Yes, that gray hair and those lines in my face. Yes.
So the other thing we'd like to look at is the types of note creators. And the idea is this somebody, and we always have the perception that, you know, it's the person that retires up north and moves down someplace sunny, or they sell their primary property and downsize to another property. And is it somebody that is typically a one and done? They're not in the business of creating notes, or they don't possess, you know, multiple properties where they're creating notes. And we call them mom and pop sellers. That is the bulk of the audience. They're not in the business of creating notes. They may sell only one note. Maybe they'll have another situation years later. And they make up 86.5% of the notes that are created, meaning they do one note. They create one note within a 12-month period. But then we kind of break that out a little bit farther and go, okay, if that's 86.5, how many of the other ones creating?
So there are 13.5% of the notes created in 2024 were created by entities or individuals that are creating 2 or more notes. And we are like, okay, well, we want to break that down further. So of the whole, 7.6% created 2 to 3 notes, but 5.9% created 4 or more notes. And so those two categories combined make up the 13.5. And so I think there's a big difference, as Fred pointed out, between the professional seller that's creating these notes to resell or to hold, or the mom and pop that's just creating one in 12 months. And
what we do with that data that's important as someone that wants to buy notes is if we're marketing for notes, if we can refine our list, and we do this where we know that this is someone that has created more than one note, our marketing communication is very different to them than it is to one and done. The mom and pop, we're going to handhold them through a little bit differently. If I'm talking to somebody that I know is creating multiple notes, my messaging is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to acknowledge that they create notes, that, you know, well done on why you created notes, and you may want to sell these occasionally. So we can tweak our messaging based on knowing who our audience is.
Excellent.
I also find that your professional note sellers should be putting together a better documentation package, perhaps looking much closer at Dodd-Frank, using an RMLO, residential mortgage loan originator. Those are things we'd expect out of someone creating 2 or more versus a mom and pop who's just going to do once in 12 months or once in their lifetime. So a different
keyword was should.
Yes.
I only work at it 10 hours a day, Tracy. I'm just not giving it all the try that I should, right?
Well, we share that passion of helping teach people to do it right, because it's good for the borrower, it's good for the seller, it's good for the end investor, and it's just the right thing to do to elevate our industry.
You know what I tell people? I say basically what we're doing is taking seller financing and pasting mortgage banking over the top of it. So we're helping them create loans that are saleable in the secondary market, and all of us have spent a lifetime, you know, trying to perfect that into the business, and the market opportunity right now, by the way, in my humble opinion, is the best it's been in over 10 years. I've got a phone call with major people that have rental portfolios. I mean, call after call after call. I mean, like all day long. That's what my day consists of now. So it's a big piece of the market. I think that market's really going to grow.
I think so too. Yeah, I would agree with you. People would rather have interest income than rental income, and they get the benefit of having an asset backed by real estate, but they don't have the tenants, the toilets, the trash, the taxes and insurance, the upkeep, the maintenance, but they still have a great cash flow. And I know that's a big part of your messaging and teaching people what to do.
we've built a spreadsheet that we give to operators in the business, and I'm in a number of masterminds and stuff. The average cap rate that a single family rent house is producing right now is right about 4%.
Give me a note any day.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow. Ouch.
Yeah.
And the appreciation they used to get slowing down too. So
Especially right now.
It's a good time to convert. And then they can defer capital gains to the installment sale. Yeah, good thing. So what's happening in 2025? Well, we've got the interest rate and inflation dance. Everybody's paying attention to what's happening there.
Yeah, we've got increasing inventory. We're starting to see, I think, the start of maybe builders slowing down, but there was this big burst of inventory and new houses. I don't know about around you, but around us, lots of new houses. Taxes and insurance costs are problematic. They've gone up in a lot of places, and a lot of what has typically been a hotbed for selling homes is starting to get a little bit of resistance. So I don't know if I want to live there because taxes and insurance so much. And then we have the softening the markets, like I was saying, just because that if you go back several slides, which we're not going to do right now, but you saw the big jump in land. My prediction is that's when house builders were like, hey, this is our chance to pick up a bunch of land. I think we're now seeing the bunch of houses go on that land. And so we're close to getting overbuilding right now.
Yep. Agree with that.
And it's very regional. We can't say what it is all across the United States. I know you're in Texas, we're in Florida, but here we're seeing days on market increase, inventory coming up,
Prices dropping on houses.
Definitely insurance costs going up. So we'll that is ripe for more seller financing. People are more open to taking back a note and allowing payments over time. If they're a little slower to move their property, they are looking for other creative methods. So that could, in 2025, influence what's happening. We have people concerned, understandably, about the stock market at the time we're recording this. There's challenges in commercial, a lot of commercial loans coming due or balloons coming due. Now the rates are much higher than they were back when they originated. We have global uncertainty, politics going on, immigration. So all of those are things as note investors we're keeping an eye on in 2025 to see how it impacts our industry.
Yep. And then it's still harder to get finance. We looked at that chart earlier that talked about the credit availability. Just because you qualified at 4 doesn't mean, you can qualify at 3 and, that kind of thing. And it's not going to go down that low again anyway. But, it's still going to be hard. And I think banks are going to play it pretty close to the vest for a long time right now. So,
well, what do you see? I mean, you've talked about the landlords that are wanting to convert some of their inventory to notes. So, I mean, what do you see in the market right now?
Well, you guys have seen me do presentations going back to 2023 talking about affordability, and it's a tenant pays $1,000 more rent or more in their mortgage payment than they do in their rent on the same house. Mm-hmm. That was a John Burns article that came out in mid-23. And I was going around to these real estate masterminds back then, and nobody could hear me. Like I was saying it, and I had the math, but nobody could hear me. And now it's almost like I'm whispering and I'm speaking with a bullhorn. And I think what's happened is the market set in and people are realizing it. And I'll tell you what's turned the direction of the industry around a lot. And it's the guys that run the numbers for the people that own rental portfolios. It's the CFOs. It's the fractional CFO services that do this for significant operators. And they've got the math. Mm-hmm. And they said, what Eddie's saying is true. You're earning a 4 cap. You could earn a 10 or 11 cap to seller finance the identical house. And so I think it's a trend. I'm the busiest I've been in a long, long time. I think you guys are too. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say that these stats help our industry. And I want to thank you guys for that. It's a lot of work. You do a beautiful job of presenting it. It's so clear. You make this, you get the right information out of these stats. And I know you do it, and you're running a business, and noteinvestor.com is somebody that we regularly recommend. So we appreciate that. But I'm saying you guys are doing it to be a go-giver to the industry, and we should all thank you for that.
Oh, well, it's
Wow.
our honor. I mean, we love this data. We've been trying to track it since I got involved in the industry in 1988, and we tried to track it back then. We just didn't have as much data. But now that all the counties are online, we have a good data provider. We love the information, and it just shows how strong our industry is. As Fred started out the show, it's good in any economy. We all feel, like you mentioned, Eddie, it's really good right now. There's plenty of business to go around, and there's plenty of opportunity to teach people how to create notes the right way. So it's safe for the buyer, safe for the seller, and safe for us as investors.
Yeah, people ask me all the time, how safe is investing in notes? And I said, well, it's, the performance rate of good notes. There's notes that aren't the best notes, but generally speaking, the performance rate of good notes is not very much off of the industry stats for conventional mortgages, actually. And it's way better than the performance rate of tenants.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you rather have somebody that's owning the home, that looks at it as their home, as their family's home, that they're working towards owning in that home? Of course, normally they're going to take better care of it than a tenant. And so many tenants, it's really changed over the years, right? Tenants really work the system, and it's gotten very hard for people to evict tenants that don't pay. I mean, just look what happened with the COVID moratorium. So I can understand why people are attracted to converting some of their portfolio to seller financing.
I deal with some guys with some fairly sizable rental portfolios, and I can just tell you right now that their whole emotional state at looking at rentals is so different than it was 4 years ago. It's just unbelievably different.
Sure.
Right. And they're just at a state where it's like they're frustrated because it is a lot of work to have rental properties, and it's frustrating to do that much work. And most of them are scraping by. They're just not quite even making it at making the math work. And if they certainly are struggling, if they have debt on it. And so, yeah, I think it's a trend in the future. And I think that, as I said, as you guys show people this, it shows people there is a market, there is a real thing. You guys have harnessed it in a way that people can see it. And you guys be sure that are listening to make sure and go get those stats, and always give Note Investor their due, right? Their stats. Don't act like you made them up. I never do. I'm telling you right now, it's your stats. I know it's just market data, but you put it together in a way, and you deserve the credit for at least, pulling it together in a picture that's easy to see. So we've had a lot of miles together. It's been a fun ride. Once again, you guys always come through with something first class. So thank you for that.
Well, thanks for having us on, and we appreciate it. And we always tell people happy note investing.
Absolutely. All right, Mr. Joe, close us up, sir.
All right. Well, one of the things that with the recent stats, Fred, Tracy, is that seller finance notes are performing a whole lot better than VA and FHA notes right now.
Yeah, that's the truth.
You've seen those. And the other thing that always gets me is California's always in that top 5. And I think that we all just think, well, it's San Francisco, it's LA County, San Diego, but there's 38 million people in California. So anyway, and
there's actually some rural property in California. Yeah. I mean, there is more seller financing in the remoter areas. Yeah. And unusual, unconventional types of properties sometimes.
The biggest note state with the least amount of note investors that we know of, proportionally. A lot of us like, I don't know. I don't want to go all the way up to California.
Another state with some interesting laws.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. When it comes to note investing.
But they create notes.
They create a lot of
notes. Yeah. Guys, thank you so much. It's good to see you. Hope to see you soon. And we'll wrap it up with, hey guys, if you want to know more about what we do at Note School, simply go to noteschool.com/TV. Go to noteinvestor.com/stats to get the stats from Fred and Tracy. And we'll see you same place, same time next week. And when is that? Well, it's Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.